Those Winter Sundays by Robert Hayden. Sundays, too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. Then, with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather, made banked fires blaze. No one ever thanked him. I'd wake and hear the cold splintering, breaking. When the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house. Speaking indifferently to him, who had driven out the cold and polished my good shoes as well, what did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices? I was in high school when I first encountered this poem by the Detroit poet Robert Hayden. I was not a very focused student and no lover of poetry, I'll tell you that. But this portrait of a father thanklessly stoking the fires of home for the sake of his family made an immediate impression on me. It was that haunting question, what did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices? It suddenly revealed to me all the things I didn't know about all the things my own father did day after day to make life better for us. No one ever thanked him either, or at least I didn't. The coupling simultaneously of austerity and loneliness with love has stayed with me in the 30 years since I first read those Winter Sundays. I can't imagine love without some measure of loneliness and want. From here in the final week of January in the year 2025, I am persuaded that the leader that Americans honor this month, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., preached about love in these same terms. Specifically in a sermon he preached around the time of the Montgomery bus boycott called Paul's Letter to American Christians, Dr. King placed the imperative to love alongside the experience of struggle. That sermon, like the other sermons that we've heard these past 3 weeks, is collected in a book called Strength to Love. A recording of it's also available from June of 1958 on YouTube. I encourage you to go find it. Welcome, then, to Rhythm and Word, a weekly midweek video devotion from Fourth Presbyterian Church in Chicago. I'm Rocky Suppinger. I'm one of the pastors here, and I am pleased to welcome you back, or perhaps welcome you for the very first time. It is my sincere hope that this brief pause in your week strengthens your faith and buoys your spirit. We have been hearing this month from Dr. King's sermons as well as from the New Testament epistle of 1 John, with its important and challenging vision for the Christian life, a life of seeking enlightenment, an eternal kind of life. In this video, we arrive at the thing that 1 John is best known for, love. In our last video, I spoke briefly about my wife and her experience of medical residency. It was about 2 years before her residency that this passage of 1 John was read at our wedding. God is love, and those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. Love has been perfected among us in this, that we may have boldness on the day of judgment, because as God is, so are we in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not reached perfection in love. We love because God first loved us. Those who say, I love God, and hate their brothers or sisters are liars, for those who do not love a brother or sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. The commandment we have from God is this: those who love God must also love their brothers and sisters. Now, obviously, ours was not the first or the last wedding to draw on these words from the New Testament. Though not read as frequently at weddings as that passage from the epistle of 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter, love is patient, love is kind, these verses from 1 John 4 nonetheless speak boldly to the power of love to resist hatred as well as to vanquish fear. We know love best, it seems, in the presence of struggle. We love best in the lonely, austere struggle against the powers of the world that would diminish the humanity of our neighbors. and no power is greater in that regard than fear. It was love's power over fear that Dr. King preached on in a sermon titled, appropriately enough, Antidote to Fear, in which he proclaimed that fear is mastered through love. Hate, the sermon observed, is rooted in fear. And the only cure for fear-hate is love. As the epistle Meredith and I heard at our wedding says clearly, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. And we fear a lot of things. Dr. King's sermon expounded several of them. I'm quoting, he said, "We are afraid of the superiority of other people, of failure, and of the scorn or disapproval of those whose opinions we most value. Envy, jealousy, a lack of self-confidence, a feeling of insecurity, and a haunting sense of inferiority are all rooted in fear. We do not envy people and then fear them. First we fear them, and subsequently we become jealous of them." But then the preacher asks this crucial question: is there a cure? Is there a cure for these annoying fears that pervert our personal lives? You already know the answer. King said, yes, a deep and abiding commitment to the way of love. Perfect love casts out fear. Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that. Hatred paralyzes life. Love releases it. Hatred confuses life. Love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life. Love illumines it. There is a lot of hatred darkening our life these days. I suppose there always is, and there always will be, but we are well acquainted with the fear-hate that stalks our national discourse these days about immigrants and asylum seekers, about people from the opposing political party, and still about racial difference. The way through that fear is love. The love of Jesus, whose love knew no boundaries, and so extended love even to those leaders of the religious system that tried him and the state that executed him. The love that challenged those without sin to cast the first stone. The love that embraced the poor and the diseased, as well as the outcasts and the despised, poor and wealthy alike. This is the love we are called to show in our day, no less than Jesus did in his, no less than Dr. King did in his. And we can. We can give this love to a world badly in need of it because it has been given to us by the one who called the world into being and who is loving and redeeming it still. We love, says 1 John 4, because God first loved us. I hope you are subscribed to this feed and keep receiving Rhythm and Word, as well as our live stream of our Sunday morning worship services and our adult education classes here at Fourth. We will be back next week with a new series of videos from Pastor Tom, though I'm afraid that this is the final video that will feature Bina, Amr, Brian, and Neil. Rhythm and Word debuted on June 2nd, 2021. You can still find it on our YouTube channel, the very first one of these we ever did, 4.5 years ago. And it has always been equal parts rhythm and word. From the very first video, Amr and Brian, Marcus, then Neil, and Leslie, then Bina, have contributed stirring musical accompaniment to the spoken reflections that these videos have contained. Lots of things have changed about them over time, but the music of this band has been a constant and has made Rhythm and Word what it is. However, reductions in our church budget for 2025 have made it necessary to say goodbye to the band with heavy, though grateful, hearts. Their contribution to our worship and our reflection will always be with us, and we will never repay our debt of gratitude for the love that they've shared with us through their music. So please, look forward to the next iteration of Fourth's midweek video devotional, whatever we may come to call it. Pastor Tom will be right here with you next week. Until then, friends, go in peace.
This little light of mine light